Commander Tyler gave his weapons officer a simple nod, and the galaxy changed forever. But instead of unleashing destruction, the Titan's wake demonstrated something far more terrifying to the assembled alien fleet. It began to create energy beams shot out from the massive human vessel toward 3 barren planets in the outer system. The beams didn't destroy the worlds but transformed them, reshaping their atmospheres and surfaces with technology that operated on principles beyond current galactic science. In less than 10 minutes, 3 dead rocks became paradise worlds complete with breathable atmospheres, vast oceans, and continents ready for colonization. "Impossible," whispered Commander Sistak aboard his flagship, watching his sensors try to process what they were seeing. No technology can reshape entire worlds in minutes. Architect technology can. Tyler's voice came through the communication system, calm and certain. "This is what you have spent 5,000 years trying to understand. The power to create rather than just destroy. The ability to build new worlds for the billions of beings who need homes." Across the galaxy, alien leaders watched the demonstration in stunned silence. The Vorthak Empire's War Council saw their dreams of conquest become meaningless in the face of technology that could create unlimited resources. The Zephyrian Collective's fear of the architects proved justified as humans displayed the ability to reshape matter itself. Admiral Cole stared at his tactical display, where the readings from the 3 new worlds showed complete ecosystem development and progress. "Ben, what else can that ship do?" he asked over the communication channel. "More than we ever imagined," Tyler replied. Dr. Brooks was right. The architect technology was waiting for a species that could think beyond war and dominance. We passed their test not by being the strongest, but by being the ones who could understand their true purpose. On New Denver's surface, colonists emerged from their shelters to see the new worlds visible in their sky. Children pointed at the glowing planets while their parents tried to comprehend that humanity had just demonstrated godlike power to the entire galaxy. Lisa Park stood with Dr. Brooks at the entrance to the underground architect facility, watching as the alien fleet maintained its position but made no aggressive moves. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now the galaxy has to decide whether it wants to be part of humanity's future or get left behind," Brooks replied. "The aliens came here thinking they were dealing with primitives who had gotten lucky. Instead, they found out they're the primitives." Aboard the Vorthak flagship, Sistak received urgent communications from his government. The Empire's leaders had been monitoring the demonstration, and their response was swift and practical. The reptilian commander's expression showed his distaste for the orders he was receiving. "Human Commander Tyler," he broadcast on open channels, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. "The Vorthak Empire requests permission to open diplomatic negotiations." Similar messages began flooding the communication networks as alien governments across the galaxy realized their military superiority had become meaningless overnight. Species that had ruled star systems for millennia suddenly found themselves facing a young race that could create new worlds as easily as they could destroy old ones. Tyler's response was broadcast to every ship and every world within range. "All alien vessels will withdraw to a distance of 1 million kilometers and maintain non-threatening positions. Representatives from each species may approach in single ships for negotiations. Any aggressive action will be met with demonstrations of technology you cannot imagine." The alien fleet began to spread out, maintaining their distance but clearly unwilling to leave the system entirely. Too much had changed too quickly for anyone to simply go home and pretend this hadn't happened. 6 months later, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the conference room of the newly constructed Terran Protectorate headquarters, orbiting the first world that the Titan's wake had created. Through the massive windows, he could see ships from dozens of species docked at the station's multiple ports. The galaxy's political structure had been completely reorganized around humanity's emergence as a major power. The Outer Rim territories were now neutral zones under human protection, where any species could establish colonies as long as they agreed to peaceful coexistence. The older alien empires maintained their traditional territories but had been forced to accept that their age of unchallenged dominance was over. The Altarian Union wants to establish 3 colonies in Sector 7, reported his aide, Lieutenant Carol Baker, reading from a datapad. The Zephyrian Collective is requesting permission to study architect ruins in Sector 12, and the Vorthak Empire is asking about trade agreements for the new agricultural worlds. Jake nodded. still amazed by how quickly former enemies had become nervous partners. What's the status on the other Titan-class ships? The Titan's shield will be completed next month, Baker replied. The Titan's Hope is scheduled for launch in 6 months. Admiral Cole says the shipyards are producing vessels faster than we ever imagined possible. Dr. Brooks entered the conference room, carrying reports from research teams working throughout human space. The discovery of architect technology had accelerated human development by centuries, but it had also raised questions about what other tests might be waiting for them. Helen, what's the latest from the research teams? Jake asked. We've activated architect facilities in 37 star systems, she reported. Each one contains technology we're still learning to understand. Shipyards, terraforming equipment, research laboratories that make our best science look primitive. Any sign of the architects themselves? Brooks shook her head. They truly did evolve beyond physical form, but their technology includes something like messages, intended for whoever inherited their legacy. They left instructions, warnings, and what might be called wisdom for their successors. What kind of warnings? That with great power comes great responsibility, Brooks said simply. The architects had the ability to reshape the galaxy, but they chose to transcend rather than rule. They left their technology for a species that could make the same choice. Jake looked out at the bustling station, where former enemies worked together on projects that would benefit all species. The Vorthok Empire was sharing military technology in exchange for access to architect medical systems. The Zephyrian Collective was teaching energy manipulation techniques to human scientists. Smaller species that had never had voices in galactic politics were establishing their first major colonies under human protection. And have we made that choice? He asked. So far, Brooks replied. But the real tests are still ahead of us. As if summoned by her words, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Jake's communicator crackled to life with an urgent message from Admiral Cole aboard the Titan's wake. Jake, you need to see this. Cole's voice was tense. Our long-range sensors have detected something coming from outside the galaxy. Something big. Jake hurried to the station's command center, where tactical displays showed readings from deep space. Far beyond the galaxy's edge, massive energy signatures were approaching at impossible speeds. What are we looking at? Jake asked. Unknown vessels, replied the sensor operator, but their energy signatures match architect technology. Brooks joined them at the displays, her face pale as she studied the readings. The architects didn't just evolve beyond physical form, she whispered. They went somewhere else, and now something is coming back. The communication system crackled to life with a transmission from the approaching vessels. The voice was unlike anything any species had ever heard, speaking in harmonics that bypassed language entirely and communicated directly with consciousness. Children of Earth, the voice said, and every human in the galaxy felt the words resonate in their minds. You have proven worthy of our gifts. Now comes your greatest test. The galaxy faces a threat that will require all species to work together or face extinction. Are you ready to lead them? Jake looked around the command center at the faces of humans and aliens working side by side. 6 months ago, they had been on the brink of war. Now they faced something that would test whether the galaxy's species could truly unite under human leadership. Send a response, Jake told the communications officer. Tell them that humanity accepts the responsibility. We're ready for whatever comes next. As the unknown vessels continued their approach from beyond the stars, the galaxy prepared for its next great challenge. The age of human isolation was over. The age of galactic unity was about to begin. And somewhere in the depths of space, ancient intelligences watched with approval as their chosen successors prepared to face the darkness between the stars. The massive form of the UHS Titan's wake dropped out of hyperspace like a metal mountain, emerging from the depths of space. The ship stretched over a kilometer from bow to stern, its hull covered in armor plating that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Along its sides, weapon ports the size of city blocks gleamed with internal energy, while at its heart, a power core based on architect technology pulsed with forces that bent space itself. Commander Ben Tyler stood on the bridge of humanity's greatest secret, watching as both human and alien fleets tried to process what they were seeing. His ship had been under construction for 20 years in hidden shipyards beyond Pluto's orbit, built using every scrap of architect technology that human scientists could understand and reverse engineer. Commander, reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Karen Davis, both fleets are scanning us. The aliens seem to be having trouble getting accurate readings. That's because they don't understand what they're looking at, Tyler replied calmly. Open a channel to all ships in the system. The communication array of the Titan's wake had a range that covered half the galaxy. When Tyler spoke, his words were heard simultaneously by every vessel present and by monitoring stations throughout civilized space. This is Commander Ben Tyler of the United Human Ship Titan's Wake, he began, his voice carrying the quiet confidence of a man who held ultimate power in his hands. To the human fleet, you have fought bravely and held your positions with honor. To the alien alliance, you came here to demonstrate your superiority over a young species. Instead, you are about to learn why the architects chose humanity as their inheritors. Aboard the Vorthak flagship, Commander Susthak stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. His sensors were telling him impossible things about the human vessel. Its power output exceeded his entire fleet combined. Its hull composition included materials that shouldn't exist according to known physics. Its weapon systems operated on principles his scientists couldn't even theorize about. How many ships did they hide from us? He hissed to his tactical officer. Sir, that appears to be a single vessel, came the nervous reply. But its reading is larger than some moons. Impossible, Susthak snarled. No single ship could generate that much power without tearing itself apart. On the bridge of the human flagship, Admiral Cole watched in amazement as more detailed scans of the Titan's wake came through. Jake, look at these numbers, he said to Captain Morrison. That ship is generating enough energy to power Earth's entire grid for a century. Where did they build something like that without anyone knowing? Jake asked. The Oort cloud, Cole realized. All those research stations they've been building out there for the past 2 decades. They weren't doing research. They were building this. Dr. Brooks' voice crackled through the communication system from the underground facility on New Denver. Admiral, the architect systems down here are responding to that ship's presence. Everything is activating at once. What do you mean, everything? Cole asked. I mean every architect facility in human space, Brooks replied, her voice filled with awe. The Titan's wake isn't just a warship. It's a key that's unlocking technology across dozens of star systems. Aboard the Titan's wake, Tyler received reports from his department heads about the ship's systems coming fully online. Chief Engineer Patricia Ross reported that the Architect Power Core was operating at peak efficiency. Weapons Officer Captain David Kim confirmed that all offensive systems were charged and ready. Navigation Officer Commander Lisa James reported that the ship's experimental jump drive could take them anywhere in the galaxy within minutes. Commander, Davis called out, the alien fleet is moving into attack formation. 800 ships converging on our position. Tyler nodded calmly. Broadcast on all frequencies again. I want every species in the galaxy to hear this. The communication array reached out across space, carrying Tyler's words to alien homeworlds, space stations, and monitoring posts throughout the galaxy. What he said next would be remembered for thousands of years. Citizens of the galaxy, he began. For 5,000 years, your civilizations have struggled to understand the technology left behind by the architects. You have treated their ruins as holy sites and their devices as incomprehensible mysteries. You have built your societies around the fear that someone might unlock their secrets and upset the balance of power you have carefully maintained. The alien fleet continued to close in, but Tyler could see uncertainty in their formations. They had come expecting to overwhelm a young species with superior numbers. But now they faced something that challenged their understanding of what was possible. Today you learn the truth, Tyler continued. The architects did not abandon this galaxy. They evolved beyond physical form, leaving their technology as a test for the species that would come after them. For 5 millennia, your races had the opportunity to pass that test. All of you failed. Aboard the Zephyrian command ship, the crystal beings pulsed with agitation as they tried to analyze the human vessel. Their leader, a massive crystalline entity called the Prime Resonance, communicated with its fleet through harmonic frequencies. The human speaks truth. It resonated to its commanders. Our archives confirm that we have never achieved more than minimal activation of architect systems. Then how do the humans succeed where we have failed? Asked a subordinate. Perhaps the architects chose them specifically, the Prime Resonance replied, its crystal structure dimming with what might have been fear. Tyler's broadcast continued, reaching every corner of the galaxy. Humanity succeeded where you failed because we were meant to inherit this technology. The architects recognized something in our species that made us suitable successors to their legacy. We do not claim this inheritance lightly, nor do we intend to use it for conquest. The alien fleet had stopped its advance, commanders uncertain how to proceed against a target they didn't understand. On hundreds of alien worlds, populations gathered around communication devices to listen to the humans' words. But neither will we be driven from our homes by civilizations too afraid to accept change, Tyler said, his voice hardening. You came here with 800 warships to destroy human colonies and drive us back to our single world. You believed that your superior numbers and ancient authority gave you the right to determine humanity's place in the galaxy? Dr. Brooks's voice came through the ship's internal communication system. Commander, I'm reading massive power buildups in architect facilities across 17 star systems. Whatever you're doing, it's activating technology we've never seen before. Tyler smiled grimly. That's exactly what I hoped would happen. We're not just showing them our ship. We're showing them what humanity is truly capable of. He turned back to the galaxy-wide broadcast. You wanted to see our response to your ultimatum, he said. Now you'll understand why threatening humanity's children was the greatest mistake your species have ever made. The Titan's wake began to glow with internal energy as its architect-based systems reached full power. Throughout human space, ancient machines awakened and began to reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. The age of alien dominance was ending, and a new era was about to begin. The galaxy held its breath as humanity prepared to show what the architects had left for their chosen inheritors. Admiral Richard Cole stood on the bridge of the UHS Washington, watching as human warships dropped out of hyperspace around him. Ships from every corner of human territory were answering the call, their crews prepared for what might be humanity's final battle. Through the main viewer, he could see the distant glow of New Denver Colony, where 3 million civilians waited to learn their fate. Admiral, the Lexington Battle Group has just arrived, reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Nancy White. That brings our total to 58 ships. Still not enough, Cole muttered, studying the tactical display. Intelligence reports showed that the Alien Alliance was bringing 800 warships to this fight. Even with the advantage of fighting near their own colonies, the humans were outnumbered more than 10 to 1. On New Denver's surface, Colonel Amy Rodriguez moved through the underground architect complex with Dr. Brooks and her team. The ancient machinery had been responding to human presence for days now, activating systems that had been dormant since before Earth's civilization began. Massive energy shields flickered to life around the colony's major cities, while weapon platforms rose from hidden locations across the planet. How many of these defensive systems are there? Amy asked, watching as a tower-like structure emerged from the ground near the main settlement. We've counted 47 so far, Dr. Brooks replied, her hand pressed against a control panel that pulsed with blue light. But the architect systems are showing us that there are more, much more. Weapons and shields built into the planet itself. Amy shook her head in amazement. Why didn't the aliens ever find this stuff? Because it was never meant for them, Brooks explained. The architect technology recognizes humans on a genetic level. We're the species they were waiting for. Above them, the first alien scouts had arrived in the system. Long-range sensors detected sleek fourth-hack reconnaissance ships moving through the outer planets, mapping human defensive positions and counting warships. More aliens would be coming soon, bringing destruction on a scale that no human world had ever faced. Captain Jake Morrison's diplomatic vessel had returned from the Galactic Council, and he was now aboard Admiral Cole's flagship. The two men stood in the Admiral's ready room, reviewing the final intelligence reports on the approaching enemy fleet. They're bringing everything they have, Jake said, pointing to the tactical display. Vorthak battle cruisers, Zephyrian energy ships, even the peaceful Altarian Union is sending destroyers. What changed their minds? Cole asked. The Altarians haven't fought a war in 2,000 years, Fear, Jake replied simply. They're all terrified of what humans might become if we master architect technology. They'd rather destroy us now than face us as equals later. Cole walked to the viewport and stared out at the human fleet. These were good ships, crewed by brave people who had volunteered to defend their colonies against impossible odds. But would courage be enough against such overwhelming numbers? Admiral, came a voice from the bridge. Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures approaching the system perimeter. Cole and Jake hurried back to the bridge, where the tactical officer was updating the display with new contacts. Hundreds of red dots appeared on the screen, representing the largest military force ever assembled in this part of the galaxy. Visual contact in 30 minutes, reported the sensor operator. As the alien fleet moved closer, individual ship types became visible on the main screen, the massive bulk of Vorthak battlecruisers, each one larger than humanity's biggest vessels. The crystalline forms of Zephyrian warships that looked more like sculptures than military vessels. Sleek destroyers from a dozen different species, all united in their desire to destroy human expansion. "Incoming transmission," announced Lieutenant White. The main screen shifted to show Commander Sezthak. His reptilian features twisted into what humans had learned was an expression of satisfaction. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship bustled with activity as his crew prepared for battle. "Human Admiral Cole," Sezthak hissed, his forked tongue flicking out to taste the air. "I bring greetings from the Galactic Council. You have 6 hours to begin evacuation of this system. After that time, any human vessels or installations remaining will be destroyed." Cole stepped forward, his expression calm despite the overwhelming odds he faced. "Commander Sezthak, I bring greetings from humanity. We respectfully decline your offer. These are our worlds and we will defend them." The alien commander's laugh was a harsh sound that made the bridge speakers crackle. "Your 58 ships against our 800? You humans are brave, but you are also foolish, perhaps," Cole replied. "But we are also stubborn. We don't abandon our people." "Then you will die with them," Sezthak said, and cut the transmission. On the surface of New Denver, civilian evacuation transports were loading families and taking them to underground shelters built around the architect complexes. Lisa Park, the colony's administrator, worked with her staff to coordinate the massive operation while trying to keep panic from spreading. "How many people can the shelters hold?" she asked her deputy, Robert Chen. "About half the population," he replied grimly. "The architect shields should protect them from orbital bombardment, but if the aliens land ground forces, then we fight," Lisa said firmly. "These people came here to build new lives. They're not going to give up without a struggle." Throughout the colony, civilians and military personnel worked together to prepare defenses. Farmers loaded ammunition. Teachers operated communication equipment. Children too young to help were taken to the deepest shelters, where ancient architect technology hummed with protective energy. High above the planet, Admiral Cole received a priority message from Earth Command. The transmission was heavily encrypted, but the contents were simple. "Protocol 7 activated. Maintain position. Help is coming." Cole frowned at the message. Protocol 7 was a classified directive that only the highest levels of command knew about. He had heard rumors about secret projects and hidden construction facilities, but nothing concrete. What kind of help could Earth possibly send that would make a difference against 800 alien warships? "Admiral," the sensor operator called out, "I'm detecting something on long-range sensors. Big signature coming in from deep space." Cole turned to the tactical display where a new contact was appearing at the edge of the system. The energy signature was massive, larger than anything in the databases. "Too big to be a ship, too structured to be an asteroid. What is that thing?" Jake whispered, staring at the readings. Before anyone could answer, a new transmission came through on emergency frequencies. The voice was human, male, and completely confident despite the impossible odds. "This is Commander Ben Tyler of the UHS Titans. Wake to all vessels in system. Human ships, maintain your positions. Alien ships, prepare to witness humanity's answer to your ultimatum." Cole stared at the main screen as the massive object continued to approach. Whatever it was about to change everything. The aliens had brought their entire combined fleet to crush humanity's expansion, but Earth had apparently been preparing a surprise of its own. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin, and the galaxy was about to learn why you should never threaten a species that refused to surrender. Dr. Helen Brooks stood in the underground chamber on New Denver Colony, her hands pressed against the smooth metal surface that no human tool had ever been able to scratch. The walls around her pulsed with a soft blue light that seemed to respond to her touch, growing brighter when she moved closer and dimming when she stepped away. This was architect technology, and somehow, impossibly, it recognized her as human. "The readings are off the charts again, Doctor," said her assistant, Mark Peterson, looking up from his instruments. "Every time you touch that panel, The energy output increases by 300%. Helen nodded, still amazed by what they had discovered 3 years ago. When the colonists of New Denver had been mining for rare metals, they had broken through into this vast underground complex. The mining team leader, a tough woman named Betty Ross, had been the first to notice that the ancient machinery responded to human presence in ways it never had for other species. "Show me the comparison data again," Helen said, stepping back from the glowing panel. Mark activated his holographic display, showing energy readings from when different alien species had tried to interact with architect technology over the past 5,000 years. The Vorthak Empire had spent centuries trying to activate even the simplest devices, managing only brief flickering responses. The Zephyrian Collective, despite their advanced understanding of energy manipulation, could barely make architect machines acknowledge their existence. "Look at this," Mark pointed to a red line on the display. "When Commander Sithak's science team visited here last year, they couldn't get more than a 5% response from any system." "And when I walk into the room?" Helen asked, though she already knew the answer. 97% system activation across the entire complex, Mark replied. "It's like the architects built this technology specifically for humans to use." Helen walked over to another section of the chamber where her team had been working for months to understand the purpose of the facility. The walls here were covered with symbols and diagrams that seemed to shift and change when viewed directly. Her linguist, Dr. Paul Martinez, had been trying to decode the writing system but had made little progress. "Paul, any breakthrough on the symbols?" she called out. The thin man looked up from his workstation, frustration clear on his face. "It's not a language in any sense we understand," he said. "The symbols seem to be instructions, but they're written in concepts rather than words. When I try to focus on individual symbols, they change. It's like they're trying to communicate directly with our minds." Helen nodded. She had experienced the same thing. When she touched certain panels, images would flash through her mind. Images of vast machines that could reshape matter at the atomic level. Images of ships that could cross the galaxy in seconds. Images of weapons that could crack planets in half. "The aliens are terrified of us, aren't they?" asked Janet Cooper, the team's archaeologist. "That's why the Galactic Council really wants us gone." "Show her the historical files," Helen told Mark. The holographic display shifted to show ancient records from the Zephyrian Collective's archives. The crystal beings kept detailed records going back 10,000 years, and their oldest files spoke of the architects with a mixture of awe and fear. According to these records, Mark explained, the architects weren't just advanced. They were gods by any measure we understand. They could create life, destroy stars, and bend the laws of physics like they were suggestions. The display showed images of architect constructions across the galaxy, massive ring structures that surrounded entire stars, harvesting their energy, artificial worlds built from nothing, complete with ecosystems and weather patterns, space stations the size of moons that served purposes no one could understand. "And then they just disappeared," Janet said, staring at the images. No explanation, no warning. One day they were reshaping the galaxy and the next day they were gone. "The Zephyrian records suggest they didn't disappear," Helen said quietly. "They evolved beyond physical form, became something so advanced that they no longer needed bodies or machines or planets." Mark pulled up another file, this one showing recent intelligence gathered by human spies in alien territories. "The Vorthak Empire has been searching for architect technology for 3,000 years, he said. "They believe that whoever masters it will become the dominant force in the galaxy. And now they've discovered that humans can use it naturally," Janet added. "While they've spent millennia trying to activate simple devices, we can interface with their most complex systems." Helen touched the wall panel again, and the entire chamber responded. Lights came on in sections that had been dark for thousands of years. Machines began to hum with power. The air itself seemed to vibrate with energy. "There's something else," she said, as information flowed into her mind from the architect systems. "This isn't the only facility. There are hundreds of them throughout human space, all waiting to be activated." "What kind of facilities?" Mark asked, his voice tight with excitement and fear. Helen closed her eyes and let the architect knowledge flow through her consciousness. "Shipyards," she whispered. "Massive construction facilities that can build vessels using technologies we don't even have words for." The team stood in silence, absorbing the implications. Somewhere above them, alien fleets were gathering to destroy their colony and drive humanity back to Earth. But below their feet lay technology that made those fleets look like toys. "Doctor," Mark said carefully, "what do you think the architects intended? Why leave all this for humans to find?" Helen opened her eyes and looked at her team. "I think they were looking for a successor species," she said. "Someone to carry on their work after they transcended physical existence. The other alien races had their chance over the past 5,000 years, but none of them could connect with the technology. And humans can," Janet said. "Humans can," Helen confirmed. "The question is, are we ready for the responsibility?" Above them, they could hear the sound of military transports landing as human forces prepared to defend the colony. The aliens thought they were facing a young species with primitive weapons and a handful of warships. They had no idea that they were about to confront the inheritors of the most advanced technology the galaxy had ever known. Helen pressed her hand against the master control panel, and throughout the underground complex, ancient machines began to wake from their 5,000-year sleep. The countdown to conflict had begun, but the aliens had no idea what they were really up against. The architects had chosen their successors well. The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a deep grinding sound that echoed through the vast hall. Captain Jake Morrison walked forward on steady legs, his blue uniform crisp and his face calm. Behind him walked his aide, Lieutenant Carol Baker, carrying a data pad filled with reports from human colonies across the outer rim. The chamber was huge, built for beings much larger than humans, and Jake felt small as he approached the center platform. 12 different alien species sat in their assigned seats around the circular chamber. The reptilian Vorthak Empire held the largest section, their scaled faces cold and unmoving as they watched Jake approach. Commander Sithak, their military leader, flicked his forked tongue and showed his sharp teeth in what humans had learned was a threat display. Next to them sat the Zephyrian Collective, beings made of living crystal whose bodies reflected the chamber's lights in strange patterns. Jake stopped at the speaking platform and waited. The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of alien breathing apparatus and the click of claws on metal. Above him, the Great Seal of the Galactic Council glowed with symbols from a dozen worlds. Human Representative Morrison, spoke the Vorthak Prime Minister, his voice a low hiss that the translation devices turned into words Jake could understand. "You stand before this council charged with the crime of illegal expansion into contested space." Jake kept his face neutral. He had expected this. For 3 years, human colonies had been growing in the Outer Rim territories, areas that the older alien civilizations claimed belonged to them. The humans had found empty worlds and made them into homes. But the aliens said these worlds were theirs by ancient right. "We contest these charges," Jake replied, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "Human colonists have settled on worlds that were empty and unclaimed. We have harmed no one and taken nothing that belonged to others." A sound like breaking glass came from the Zephyrian section. Their speaker, a tall being whose crystal body pulsed with internal light, stood up. "Young human, you do not understand the ancient laws that govern this galaxy. These worlds were marked by the architects 5,000 years ago. No species may claim them without permission from this council." Jake had heard about the architects before. They were an ancient race that had built amazing things throughout the galaxy, and then disappeared without explanation. The older alien species treated anything the architects had touched as sacred ground. "With respect," Jake said, "the architects are gone. They left no laws about who could use their worlds. Human families have been living on these planets for 3 years. They have built homes, grown crops, and created communities. These are not empty monuments anymore." The reptilian commander Sithak rose from his seat, his massive form casting a shadow over Jake. "The human speaks of families and homes," he said, his voice full of contempt. "But we speak of power that could destroy galaxies. The architect worlds contain technology beyond your understanding. No young species can be trusted with such things." Other alien representatives began to speak, their voices mixing into a chaos of different languages and sounds. Jake caught fragments through his translator. Words like dangerous and unworthy, and threat to all civilized beings came through clearly. The council's leader, an ancient being from a species Jake didn't recognize, raised one of its many arms for silence. "The decision of this council is final," it announced. "Humanity has 72 hours to withdraw all military assets and civilian populations from the contested territories. If you refuse, the combined fleets of the Galactic Alliance will remove you by force. Jake felt his heart rate increase but kept his expression calm. How many ships are we talking about? He asked. 800 warships from 12 species, Susthak replied with obvious satisfaction. The largest military force assembled in galactic history. Your 60 human ships cannot stand against us. The chamber fell silent as Jake considered his response. He thought about the colonies, the families who had worked so hard to build new lives on distant worlds. He thought about the children who had been born on those planets and had never seen Earth. These aliens wanted to destroy all of that because they were afraid of change. I will carry your message to my government, Jake said finally. But I think you should know that humanity does not abandon its people. We will not leave our colonies defenseless. Then you choose war with the entire galaxy, the Zephyrian speaker said, its crystal body now glowing red with what Jake assumed was anger. We choose to protect our families, Jake replied. There is a difference. As he turned to leave, Jake activated his communicator and sent an encrypted message back to Earth. The message was short, but it would tell the human military everything they needed to know. They want us gone. Send everything we have. The walk back to his ship felt much longer than the walk in. Lieutenant Baker stayed quiet beside him, but Jake could see the worry in her eyes. Once they were aboard the diplomatic vessel UHS Meridian, she finally spoke. Captain, do we really have anything that can stand against 800 alien warships? She asked. Jake looked out at the stars through the ship's viewport. Somewhere out there, human families were going about their daily lives not knowing that the entire galaxy had just declared war on them. Children were playing in schoolyards on New Denver. Farmers were tending crops on Haven Colony. Engineers were building new cities on Frontier Prime. I don't know, he admitted, but I know we're not going to let them be slaughtered without a fight. The Meridian's engines came online and the ship began its journey back to human space. Behind them, the Galactic Council chamber buzzed with activity as the alien species began planning their attack. They were confident in their superiority, certain that the young human race would collapse when faced with their combined might. They had no idea what humanity had been building in secret. They had no idea what was coming. The 72-hour countdown had begun, and across human space, military commanders received coded messages that activated protocols they had hoped would never be needed. The galaxy's oldest civilizations had just made the biggest mistake in their long histories. They had threatened humanity's children.